In a small, bustling town, she was the girl everyone admired. Adaugo, the pride of her family, the shining star of her school, and a voice that graced the church choir with angelic melodies. Her life seemed perfect. A young girl with dreams so bright they illuminated every corner of her community. Her mother beamed with pride as she watched her daughter grow into a remarkable young woman, an inspiration to her peers, a source of joy to her teachers, and the very definition of hope for a better tomorrow. Adaugo was the kind of girl who carried the weight of her family's aspirations on her shoulders. Teachers marveled at her academic excellence. Neighbors whispered about her beauty, grace, and unwavering respect for her elders. To her mother, she was the embodiment of everything good, poised for greatness. But even the brightest stars, they say, sometimes falter. Behind the radiant smiles and her commendable achievements, choices were being made. Small, seemingly harmless decisions that would lead her down a path she never anticipated. A path that would test every value she held dear. Adaugo didn't know that the people she trusted, the decisions she made, and the pressures she faced would alter her life in ways she could never have imagined. What started as a simple desire to fit in would lead to a chain of events that even she couldn't escape. This is not just a story about love. It's a story of betrayal, of choices, and the price one young girl paid for ignoring the warnings of her heart and the lessons of her upbringing. This is Adaugo's story. A tale of hope, of loss, and of consequences that ripple far beyond what the eye can see. Stay with us as we uncover the choices, the consequences, and the lessons in Adaugo's journey. Adaugo was the kind of child every parent dreamed of raising. From the moment she could speak, she carried an aura of brilliance that set her apart. In the classroom, her teacher spoke of her with pride, a student whose dedication to her studies made her a shining example for her peers. Her notebooks were always immaculate, her answers thoughtful, and her ambitions as vast as the skies above her small but lively town. She was not just an academic star. Adaugo's voice carried the spirit of her community every Sunday as she sang in the church choir. Her melodies lifted the hearts of the congregation and reminded them of the beauty that lies in youth and faith. At home, Adaugo was a pillar of respect and discipline. The kind of daughter who woke early to help with chores, who greeted every elder with humility, and who honored the lessons her mother had instilled in her. Mrs. Uju, Adaugo's mother, was her biggest supporter, her strongest cheerleader. She saw in her daughter the hope of a better future and worked tirelessly to give her the opportunities she herself never had. Her values were deeply rooted in respect, diligence, and a love for education. In a world where distractions loomed large, Adaugo remained steadfast, focused, and determined to achieve the dreams her family had envisioned for her. But even the strongest values can be tested. And for Adaugo, the test would come in ways she never could have anticipated. Her early life was a testament to promise and purpose. But as the saying goes, even the tallest trees can fall when the winds of life grow too strong. In the corridors of our school, Adaugo stood out, not for the flashy gadgets or romantic escapades her peers flaunted, but for her simplicity and focus. While her classmates boasted about their boyfriends and the gifts they received, Adaugo remained steadfast in her beliefs. To her, education came first, and anything that threatened her dreams was not worth considering. But standing firm in a sea of temptation was no easy feat. Among her friends, one voice grew louder and more insistent, Titi. Smart, confident, and streetwise, Titi was everything Adaugo was not. She knew how to navigate the social circles, how to catch attention, and how to sway even the most disciplined of hearts. For Titi, Adaugo's reluctance was old-fashioned, and she made it her mission to change that. "Don't you want to have fun, Adaugo?" Titi would ask. "You deserve someone who will take care of you, someone who will show you what life is really about." The words lingered. Slowly, the pressure began to weigh on Adaugo, and what she once dismissed as unnecessary began to feel like an invitation she couldn't refuse. And then, he appeared. Beo. 27 years old, charismatic, and effortlessly charming. His presence was magnetic. With his sleek cars, designer clothes, and an air of confidence, he was unlike anyone Adaugo had ever met. To her friends, he was a catch, a dream man who could provide what no boy their age ever could. It wasn't long before Beo's attention turned to Adaugo. With Titi as the matchmaker, introductions were made, and the web was spun. Beo was everything Adaugo thought she didn't need, yet, in his presence, she found herself questioning her principles. At first, it felt harmless. A gift here, a compliment there. But Beo had a way of making her feel special, of wrapping her in a world of luxury she had only dreamed of. Her friends envied her. To them, she had won the jackpot, a man who was mature, successful, and devoted to her. But behind the glitz and glamour, cracks began to show. Though his charm was undeniable, so was his persistence. Beo wanted more from Adaugo, more than she was willing to give. He pressed for intimacy, veiling his demands in promises of love and a future together. For Adaugo, these moments of pressure became red flags, but the allure of his world made them easier to ignore. With each passing day, the line between right and wrong blurred further. Adaugo's principles, once unshakable, began to waver under the weight of Beo's influence. What she didn't know was that this path, paved with promises and gifts, would lead her to a place she never imagined. It started with a promise. Beo painted a picture of escape, a weekend getaway to celebrate her hard work and the bond they had built. He assured her it would be innocent, just a chance to relax and experience life beyond the walls of her small town. For Adaugo, it sounded like a dream, a step into a world she had only seen in movies. She waited at the park that morning, her heart pounding with anticipation and guilt. Her mother had just dropped her off, believing she was on her way back to school. But as soon as Mrs. Uju disappeared into the distance, Adaugo stepped off the bus and into a world she couldn't comprehend. The result was everything Beo had promised, luxurious, secluded, and unlike anything Adaugo had ever experienced. But beneath the glamour lay an unsettling tension, one that Adaugo couldn't yet put into words. For the first day, everything seemed perfect. Beo treated her like royalty, showering her with attention and making her feel special. But by the second evening, his tone shifted. His charm became more calculated, his words laced with subtle demands. He spoke of love, of trust, and of proving her feelings for him. Adaugo felt torn. Part of her clung to the values her mother had instilled in her, the promises she had made to herself. But another part, a part she didn't fully understand, wanted to give in. To be loved, to belong, to silence the doubts that had followed her for weeks. And so, that night, Beo took what Adaugo had held sacred all her life. It wasn't forceful, it was manipulation, a quiet erosion of her defenses until there was nothing left to fight with. Adaugo's innocence, her trust, and her sense of self were all left shattered. On their way back, the atmosphere in the car was quiet. Adaugo tried to push aside her doubts, focusing instead on the stories she would share with her friends. But as the car rounded a bend, flashing lights in the distance signaled an unplanned detour. A police checkpoint. Beo, always the smooth talker, greeted the officers with confidence. He handed over his documents, trying to charm his way out of scrutiny. But when the officers turned their attention to Adaugo, everything changed. Their stories didn't align. Beo claimed Adaugo was his sister, but when asked her mother's name, their answers differed. Suspicion grew, and the officers insisted on contacting Adaugo's family. Panic set in. Adaugo begged them not to call her mother, but the officers were unyielding. By the time they reached the station, the truth was undeniable. Mrs. Uju arrived, her face a mixture of heartbreak and fury. In that moment, the world Adaugo had built with lies and half-truths came crashing down. The events of that day would mark the beginning of Adaugo's fall, a turning point from which there was no easy return. The days following the incident were marked by silence and shame. Adaugo returned home, no longer the bright star her mother had proudly sent to school. The once vibrant girl now sat in her mother's shop, avoiding the judgmental stares of neighbors and the whispers that seemed to follow her everywhere. The school had made its stance clear. Adaugo's actions had brought dishonor, and they would not tolerate her presence. Suspended and ostracized, her future seemed to hang by a thread. But the weight of her choices grew heavier when she began to feel unwell. Adaugo was pregnant. The dreams her family had nurtured for years seemed to vanish in an instant. For her mother, it was a devastating blow, watching the daughter she had worked so hard to raise fall into a pit she could not pull her out of. The community, once filled with pride for Adaugo, now whispered about her failure, their judgment ringing louder than any support they could offer. Her world had grown smaller, reduced to a handful of moments spent between the shop and her home. And with every passing day, the reality of her choices became clearer. But while Adaugo faced the fallout of her choices, Beo's carefully constructed facade began to crumble. The police, having held him for questioning after the incident, uncovered a trail of fraud that stretched back years. The man who had promised Adaugo the world had built his own empire on lies and deceit. The truth was undeniable. Beo had swindled countless victims, using charm and manipulation to fund his extravagant lifestyle. The cars, the gifts, the promises, they were all part of an illusion, one that now lay in ruins. As Beo sat in detention, awaiting trial, the irony of his situation became painfully clear. The man who had lured Adaugo into a world she wasn't ready for now faced the collapse of his own. The consequences of his actions reached far beyond himself, leaving a trail of heartbreak and betrayal in their wake. Two lives, once intertwined, now faced the full weight of their choices. Adaugo's dreams, suspended but not yet extinguished. Beo's empire, destroyed by the very lies he used to build it. The story of love, betrayal, and consequences had reached its turning point, but the scars left behind would remain for a lifetime. Adaugo's story is one of choices that seem small at first but grew into decisions with life-altering consequences. From the whispers of peer pressure to the allure of a life she thought she wanted, Adaugo's journey reminds us of the power and responsibility we carry in every choice we make. The dangers of peer pressure cannot be overstated. It can come from even the closest of friends, persuading us to stray from our values. But staying true to who we are and the principles that guide us can make all the difference. Adaugo's story is a reminder that the strength to say no is often the greatest strength of all. Her choices also teach us about consequences. Every action we take sets off a ripple, not just in our own lives but in the lives of those around us. Adaugo's dreams were put on hold, her life forever changed by a momentary decision. And for Beau, a life built on deceit eventually came crashing down, leaving him to face the weight of his actions. But this is not where Adaugo's story ends. Life gives us second chances, even in the face of mistakes. As the sun rises on a new day, Adaugo begins the journey of rebuilding her life, not just for herself, but for her child. A symbol of hope, a promise to do better, and a chance to rewrite her story. What would you do if you were in Adaugo's shoes? Could you resist the pressures she faced? And what about Beau? Did he get what he deserved? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Your voice is part of the conversation, and we'd love to hear it. If you want more stories like Adaugo's, stories that inspire, challenge, and reflect the realities of African life, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell and share with your friends and family who will find this beneficial. Your support helps us share more of these important tales.